actually start. So also we have the pathway with SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, that has students specializing in fashion design, in drama and music. He's already acting. The one that graduated there is already acting, has already his music on Apple, iTunes. So it's really for students who know exactly who they are and what they want to do. The IB says we shouldn't be waiting so long till they get to university to start doing that. We can start doing it. So we have partnership with organizations and universities, and they start taking university courses and specialized courses way earlier at the age of 16. IB is not a curriculum, by the way, except when you get to the higher level at 16 to 18. It's much more of a framework. So what I usually tell my parents who come to us is like, we what we should be looking at. I'm like, what do you want your child to be in the future? So it's not as much as what it's now, but it's about looking. I always say, we're trying now to prepare students for. So what is the school doing to prepare these students for 20, 30 years? What is the IB doing? What kind of skill development? What kind of framework it's putting in place to make sure that the students is ready for the future? Because these students, by the time we are now preparing students for 20, 30 years. So I always start with that question, where?
And ranging from 18 months to 16 years. And when we are choosing schools, after doing a couple of one-on-one sessions with the kids at home, and we realize that this child is ready to be integrated into the mainstream. I tell parents it's not really about sometimes the curriculum or what the administration is saying. It's about the willingness of the people in the classroom. Number one, the teachers, because sometimes Madam Dr. Fatima here is saying something amazing, but how is it translating to the teacher in the classroom? I know Aris is an inclusive school, and sometimes depending on if we don't get a willing teacher, sometimes it's really hard to help to facilitate that generalization piece. We want our children to now practice in the mainstream school. Like you said, I've been to Lycée, and it was I think we worked well together because I had a child there, and he is French, and we were doing therapy with him. Speech is struggling. I'm English, no French. So we ended up saying that, okay, let's switch schools because he was in another school. Brothers are already in Lycée. Then it's like, okay, let him come there. Let's get him a French facilitator. Let's train that person to be able to implement. And I believe the school took on a very great approach. This child was a nonverbal child, but yet he engaged. Prior to coming in his previous school, he was just walking around, no proper engagement. But coming in, I believe it helped. And I believe by the time they transferred, it was a great success story for the family. So with GES, I've had experience with GES as well. Like I said, for me, it's not really about the curriculum. I've had great teachers in a GES system because not all parents can afford the IB, which will be the dream for every parent. I believe when you hear all these things, how it will expose my child is not being tested according to what they will get on the exam score, which we grew up with, right? We grew up with chew, pour, pass, and forget mantra. So we just do rote learning. oh, what's this? Then you answer. But now we need our kids to be more critically thinking. My children has been through the Montessori approach and it's been amazing. The same issue you said, when are they going to write? Where is the homework coming? But seeing them and now they've transitioned to a Cambridge school, I'm like, I really appreciate that foundation because I don't need to do a lot of work with them. They come, they love to learn. It has nothing about you forcing them. Oh, do your homework. Like, oh, mommy, I have homework. They just start it. And I believe these, if our GES new policy and new curriculum is well implemented, is going to help with the kids. I don't know if I've covered much of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think Dr. Fatima wants to add something to it.
It really has nothing to do if it's IB or Cambridge or this. It's about the philosophy, the education philosophy of the school. So it's about its values. Like for us, we've been working 14 years and our priority number one strategic focus is personalized learning. Understanding that every student, and that IB wants to see your SEN policy and how you're being inclusive, but I know a lot of IB schools that are very far from being inclusive. So it's more a philosophy from the school, a culture, and systems that we put in place to make sure. So we started the inclusion kind of aspect 14 years back, and things we've introduced in like our values. Our first value is greatness in everyone. We don't talk about, by the way, we don't use the word SEN in our school. We talk about personalized learning. And now we've moved to talking about enhancement and enrichment program. So the past 2 years, we've been working on our gifted and talented program also. We realized I have 38 staff just on those who do that additional one-on-one and support. So I have my teachers, the assistant teachers, and I have between primary and secondary additional a department called the Personalized Learning Support Department, which is 38 additional staff who are speech therapists, occupational therapists, graduates of the SEN program here. Our counselors are our therapists. We have 2 art therapists. So it was more a dedication from the board, who then allowed me to have these values, these programs, then the budget for the training. And we have a budget of $270,000 just for training for our staff every year because our staff need to be extensively developing these skills and these personalized learning, understanding of what needs every child, because we're talking every child. So we run for every 5.5 child, we have 1 staff in our school. So all of that, it's, as I'm saying, it has nothing to do with the curriculum. It has to do with the commitment of the board, then saying, because I'm committed to that, what does that mean? What kind of people I need to put in place? What kind of training I need to put in? And then what kind of values and how do I develop the department? Ensuring that I meet the whole spectrum, from my students that are nonverbal, who are with severe needs, to I have students who have 4 standard deviation above their class. So these need extensive enrichment, specialized program, because I'm sure you know, these gifted and talented, your autistic students are going to be gifted and talented somewhere, and they're going to, because they have the disproportionate development aspect. So they will be completely gifted and talented in something, but will need extensive support in somewhere else. So the way we've developed it now, it's to not say they belong to a box, either here or here. We've developed diamond-shaped services. We call it services and opportunity. And and it's tier 2, tier 3, tier 1, level 1, which is the +1, -2 standard deviations in their abilities in the different. It could be in music. It could be. So, and we have the level 1 and level 2 and level 3. So a student can access opportunities and services from level 3 and tier 3. So also a mistake a lot of schools do, like you box the child and that's it. You don't even go in depth to understand there's no child that is just hopeless. I do not believe in that at all. It's just that you haven't spent time to really understand what the child is good at and what you need to put in place as an organization to ensure that you look at their best interest and you will ensure that they will achieve their best potential. So that takes work. And we've been doing it for 14 years. And we just started 2 years ago, our gifted and talented program, to kind of meet the spectrum. I know we have 10 more years to go, and we're going to keep changing our model, basically, because with the changes, with more testing, with more support, because when I started 14 years, we didn't have anybody on the ground. We had to build our own skill set. But then Ghana now has quite a lot of experts that are helping us with that development.
I think Rodrigue, you want to add something to it? Yeah.
Yes, I agree partly with what you said. I agree when you said that it's up to the school to put in place this culture of supporting the students, etc. But maybe it's the way the French network is designed and the French curriculum is designed. But I do believe that it shouldn't entirely be up to each individual school to develop its own policy. I do believe in the consistency of having a system and process in every single French school all over the world and in France that do have actually the same policy to general policy, and then it adapts to each child, but the general system in place. And it's not just what do you want to do or not. It is, we are inspected by the French government and we say, what do you do for those students? It's, yes, a bit centralized. Yes, a bit sometimes looks like a bit rigid. But what I do see in that is a consistency. If you one day, you're supposed to in Accra, wonderful place. I've been there for 3 months, I love it. But maybe in 3 years' time, my kids will be in New York or back to France. Well, or back to London, whatever. Life is roller, so we move around. And those families are sometimes move around also. So if you move around and your child has, special education needs, we can call them the way you want, but in the end, it needs some extra support because it's got a condition, it's got dyslexia, it's got diagnosis that needs extra support. Oh, it's super gifted, so it needs an extra help. Wherever you go in that network, you come with your individual learning plan that the school has to put in place. The school has to be signed by the parents. It's very processed. It's mandatory for all the parents to know it, but all the teachers to adapt to it and to do all the reasonable adjustment they can make in their own subject. You move to the other school, you move with the same plan. They will know, I know that plan, but it's not at the end. You can move that plan around, adapt it from year to year, from month to month if it needs to be adjusted. Sometimes you need some help when you're 12, you don't need that help when you're 16. But if you do need that help when you're 16 or 17, and you have moved around because life is life, you come with your individualized plan, you register for the exam. We're doing that with the head teacher again yesterday in the office, and we were registering all the students and saying, oh, these students have been around, he's come from Abidjan, come from everywhere, but he's been to a French school before. We know what adjustment has to be made for the final exams of the baccalaureate, and adjustment will be made. So that's consistency, I think. That's the difference, I think.
Just a quick one.
Quick one.
Okay.
Because you said what parents should ask when they go. One of the main questions, ask the school, will you repeat my child if my child does not meet the standards? Repeating my child means you're burdening my child with a child. Supposedly you're the adult, you're the school. You should be the expert in education and to know how to lead and how to support that child and how to develop pathways for that child within your education system. As long as we have schools in Ghana that are repeating and burdening children for, you have to repeat. First time, second time, third time. Why? Because you haven't achieved my standards. Have you asked yourself why the child hasn't achieved your standards? And what's wrong in the way you're teaching and the approaches and the pathways in everything you're doing? So I would say every parent, maybe that's the question you should ask the school. Will the school penalize your children for being neurodiverse and learning differently? If they're doing that, then I think it's against child's rights. It's against all the research in education that repeating a child never helps. The research says it extensively. And it means we don't want to do our work as schools. We just want to penalize the family and the child.
I think you wanted to add something, but before we move to that, I just wanted to add, Dr. Fatima, one of the things that you have to realize is that the culture in Ghana, in terms of, right now we've evolved, but in the past, like my parents' generation, you're okay with the school repeating your child.
Yeah.
You are okay with the teacher beating your child.
Yeah.
Even parents will take their kids to school, beat my child because she was naughty at home. So for them, it's like, okay, the child is being punished because they didn't learn. Now we are getting to a point where we've evolved because, we are more exposed now and we ask more questions and all that. And I'm happy you brought that up because it's not going to come natural to a lot of parents to just ask that question. So this is a discussion I've had before. I've had a friend of mine who was skipped. He was skipped 3 times. And I asked him as an adult that how did it make you feel, or how did were you even properly socialized being skipped 3 times? Because by the time he got to secondary school, we were all 15, he was 12. He was bullied because we all knew his age and, yes, academically you are excelling, but is that all that it takes, So I totally agree with that, but we still have a way to go. We have, You wanted to add something?
Yes, I wanted to add, I think Dr. Fatima mentioned about every child. I say every child can learn. Mm-hmm. It is up to you to discover how.
Right.
And if teachers put in the work, I think in my 10 years of being in different schools, because part of my practice, once the kids are ready to go to school, the therapist goes into the school to facilitate and gradually work themselves out, right? And sometimes you can tell that box mentality. Oh, this one, that's how he is. Lack of ambition as teachers for our students.